Yichyeh, thank you so much for coming. All of you, it's wonderful to share this space again. I think as much as possible, the Chaver can try to move in. Just take your chair with you to try to move in. I'll tell you, the feeling that I have almost in a certain way is that maybe last time when we sat in this room, like Hashem, with hundreds of people, in a certain sense, even though I think what we do, what we offer, what we're learning together is shaykh for everyone, I think. But in a way, it's like you go fishing, you know? You go fishing because you're trying to catch neshamas that are sensitive enough and aware enough and awake enough to understand that they're looking for something. They're searching for something. By virtue of uniqueness of it, at the end of the day, it's always just like a small, intimate group. Because there's something special about this kind of learning, there's something special about this kind of experience, there's something special about being able to open up enough and feel comfortable enough to open up entirely before Hashem. And it's a little bit what we're trying to do here tonight. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate from the depth of my neshama that each and every one of you came. Everybody's very busy, particularly the women. It's Thursday night, preparing for Shabbos. It's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Before we sing a few niggunim, and I'll teach a few niggunim, and we'll learn. We'll sing a little bit more. I want to share with you that all of us know in this week's parsha, standing right before Matan Torah, Yichyeh Sham Yisrael Neged Bahar. All of Am Yisrael stand at the foot of the mountain, and of course Chazal say, Yichyeh Sham Yisrael Neged Bahar. Yichyeh is singular. All of us know what Chazal say, Ki ish echad b'leiv echad. Am Yisrael stood like one person. If we could take the effects off the mic just for now. Thank you. Ki ish echad b'leiv echad. So listen to the way that Moshe Cabrina read this pasuk. He said, Chazal tell us that the Satan, which means all challenges, all obstacles, all suffering, all difficulties, the Satan, the Yitzhahar, the Malach HaMavas, all the same fellow, is comparable to a har, is comparable to a mountain. In this world we see him as a mountain and then see him as a hair. It's connected to a mountain. And Rav Moshe Cabrina read this pasuk, Yichyeh Sham Yisrael, that if all of Am Yisrael could get together, Ki ish echad b'leiv echad, as one, mamish as one, open as one, like for real, he says this and this alone is a neged har. Is the weapon, is the tool that we have, neged har against this thing called the har, the Yitzhahar. Getting together, out of isolation, out of feeling alone, opening up to learn, to make an effort, to express our ratzons, the most important thing in the world. And so just this, like even if no words are said and no songs are sung, just the fact that you got together here for something holy is already something unbelievable. It's neged har, it's unbelievable. What a privilege. What a privilege. So thank you for joining. I want to thank Tzvi Geffen, who I don't see here, for really putting so much effort into making all this happen, this whole Shabbos. I want to thank thank Rabbi Schiff, Rabbi Naftali Schiff of Jewish Futures, which is the umbrella organization that Eilecha is part of. And again, I want to thank all of you for being here. And all of our incredible musicians for joining. So let's sing together.
Oh
Please join me for this one. Really, this is such an opportunity for all of us to really, just for the time that we have together, to try to mamish let go, let loose. This is it. Sometimes we have an opportunity to be among people who they're also ready. There's no inhibitions. Just let it go. Let it go. Whatever's building up, whatever you need to scream about, whatever you need to cry about, whatever you need to feel about. Let's try to share this sacred space together. What a privilege. If I have the privilege, if you'll allow me, I'd love to share a niggunim with you. Could be some of you know it. If you do know it, for sure sing along strong. It's one niggunim, but it's really two niggunim. It's two niggunim, but it's really one niggunim, and I'll explain. If you've heard of Yosef Karduner, just out of curiosity, raise your hand. Yosef Karduner. We have one. Yosef Karduner is a musician, but that's like the worst way of describing him. He's mamash not a musician, even though he plays music and he composed songs that you've heard of. For example, Shira Mahalo. Have you heard of that? That's Yosef. So he's not a musician. He's mamash a tzaddik. He's a real tzaddik, and you'll hear that in his music because it comes from such a pure place. It's not music like entertainment. It's deep music, deep. And so I'd like to share with you two niggunim of his, and we'll sing them one into the other. And the first is with the words of the Tahir Libeinu La'avdecha be'emes, which we say in the davening of Shabbos, which we're going to be learning about now. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tahir Libeinu, purify our hearts, La'avdecha be'emes. Just want to serve you for real. Want to have a relationship with you for real. Be'emes, open me up. Anchilenu Hashem Elokeinu ba'ahava u'b'ratzon, Shabbos-themed. What a gift of Shabbos we have. What a gift, unbelievable. Kadosh Baruch Hu gifted us Shabbos, ba'ava, with love, with and we'll learn about that, and with great desire. Yenuchu v'yikol Yisrael, that Am Yisrael can rest. Mekadesh Shemach. Each and every one of us in this room is Mekadesh Shemayim. With every breath that we take. Mekadesh Shemach. That's the first niggunim with those words, and you'll learn it, you'll pick it up, we'll sing it. But really just to listen, but to sing it, to learn it. And then we'll move into his song that's called Mikimi. I was sending one of the Chevra the YouTube link to this song, just to listen to learn it a little bit. And I happened to notice in the comments on this song Mikimi, all in Hebrew, but somebody had written over there, he said, this Mikimi has been with me for 20 years, he wrote in a comment. For 20 years, this niggunim Mikimi. How many songs can you think of that are with you, Mom, for 20 years? Have a relationship with this song. You'll hear why, Be'ezrat Hashem. But the relationship with Shabbos is that this is what Shabbos does. Mikimi me afar gedol me ashbaz yor me evyon. On Shabbos, no matter what we did during the week, no matter how confused we feel and conflicted and scatterbrained and dragged in 1,000 directions, whatever we're going through, but Shabbos b'menucha. Lo yishivim nedivei ameh. Yishivi akaris abayis. Yeim abanim smecha. So let me share these niggunim with you. And try if you can to learn them and sing them. But really, if we can shut our eyes and just let it in, It's like a mix for these niggunim. Let's sing them together. Yaldecha b'yemet B'yam chileinu Hashem Elokeinu B'yavom v'ratzon Shabbos Kodshecha V'yanuchu Kol Yisrael V'kadesh Shemecha. This is the whole song. V'taheli b'hinu Liyamecha v'yemet V'hanchileinu Hashem Elokeinu V'yavam v'ratzon Shabbos Kodshecha V'yanuchu Kol Yisrael V'kadesh Shemecha. To the key is the lower. V'taheli b'hinu Liyamecha v'yemet V'yanchileinu Hashem Elokeinu V'yavam v'ratzon Shabbos Kodshecha V'yanuchu Kol Yisrael V'kadesh Shemecha. Please join me with the melody. Let's learn. Shabbosdi'ke. You know, one of the Rabbeim of Chabad was called the Rebbe Rashab. Reb Shalom Dov Ber. It's a gigantic mind. Gigantic mind. His Torahs are deeper than anything. They're pages and pages and pages and pages. They took hours and hours to tell over. Rebbe Rashab was going. When he was older, he was a little bit ill. It's possible to turn the reverb down.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. And the Rebbetzin was very concerned with his health to make sure that he was eating properly. And she appointed one of the Hasidim that his job was, because of whatever issue that he had, he needed very much to drink, to eat. I don't know if you eat soup or drink soup, I don't know. Is it still called eating if you eat it with a spoon? I guess you drink it out of a spoon, I don't know. So his job was to make sure that the Rebbe Rashab had his soup. Hot soup. Soup. This was his job. Day after day he's bringing the Rebbe soup. One evening he brings the Rebbe the customary soup and he brings it in front of him. He's very particular to make sure that the Rebbe has the soup because it's very important for his health. It's a very important job he has. And so he's standing nearby and he notices that the Rebbe is sitting there with a spoon and he's just stirring it around. He's not eating it. Now the chassid, again, knows that it's very important that the Rebbe eats the soup. So he's standing and he's waiting and he's watching. And this goes on for minutes and minutes. The soup's getting cold. It's very important that it's hot soup. See, he comes over and he says, he says, Rebbe, if you're looking for the lakshan, it's on the bottom. The lakshan's on the bottom. And the Rebbe Rashab looked up and he smiled. And he said these words, they said in Gemara, he said, Nichamtani. You consoled me. Because you understand that the chassid thought he was talking about soup and lakshan. And the Rebbe Rashab understood that he was talking about all of life and where the good stuff is. The good stuff is always at the bottom, is in the depth, is in the omek. That's where the lakshan is. The lakshan is at the bottom. And so it's very important if we're to get a tam for Yiddishkeit, a taste of Shabbos, we need the lakshan. We need mamish to go ba'omek. So we're going to learn now Sashir, Siyata Deshmaya. And let's try to be fully in, and I think that together with Hashem's help we can learn something of value so that we can come into Shabbos a little bit more awake, a little bit more aware. It's brought in the Svarim HaKadoshim, the Zohar Kodesh brings it down, it's brought in the other Svarim, that Shalosh Shivos, at the very end of Shabbos, the third Suda, is referred to by a unique pair of terms. It's really one word. It's a term. And that term is Rav de Ravin. Shalosh Shivos is called a Rav de Ravin. Ever heard this term? I'm sure you're familiar with it. Rav de Ravin. This is Shabbos. Shalosh Shivos. What does it mean? What's the translation? Rav de Ravin is the will of all wills, the desire of all desires. Rav Ravin. Why is it that Shalosh Shabbos is called Rav Ravin? What does that mean? What does that mean? This is the time of the will of wills. What is this? What does it mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, having created the world with intention, as is clear from the life that we experience, it's clear that the beginning of that creative process began where? With will, with desire. If there's some way to find a way to turn the reverb all the way down, I don't know where the Yid went. If anybody knows how to work this. Thank you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired this world. And that was the first step. And then there was thinking about the world. And then there was the act of going ahead and creating the world. But the first step is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. He had a will, he had a desire. What was the desire? What's this all for? There are many reasons given, none of them are adequate, and none of them are emes. Even though they're emes on some level, but the emes lamita of why Hashem created the world, let's be real. Nobody really knows. We can give reasons. Everybody gives a different reason. But the reason, we can't grasp. It's beyond us. In the deeper Svarim, that place of Hashem's will is called Keser. It's called a crown. And the very basic reason why it's called a crown is because the thought process that goes into taking what a person wants to do and then actively thinking about how to go ahead doing that takes place in the mind. And so the will, which precedes the thought process, must be beyond the mind. And this is why the stage before thinking about how to go ahead doing something is called the crown, which is above the thinking, right? Comes first. In the deeper texts, that level of keser, of Hashem's will, is called ayin. It's called nothingness. And it's called ayin because we have zero understanding of it. It's completely beyond us. The ratzon that Hashem had to create a world, essentially, we're allowed to sit in a mystery. It's okay. It's the site of Shabbosdi'ke. Not getting into it now. Siyag l'chachma shtika, right? The fence of wisdom is silence. What's a crown? A crown is the fence of wisdom, right? The wisdom is in the head, chachma, and bina, in the mind. What's the siyag? Is the crown. That's the place of shtika. And all the time you find silence in Chumash, Vayidon Aaron, in Chazal, Shtoik, Kachal, in Machshava, different places where you find silence. It's always a reference of connecting to this place of just the unknowable. It's not a matter of reasons and answers. It's beyond questions. It just is. Kacha. Kacha's Rosh Hashanah Keser Kol HaKsarim. The Baal Shem Tov says kacha. If a person says, well, why do you like vanilla ice cream, let's say? So he says, kacha. I don't know. I don't know. Can't explain it. Kacha is. Salpipini is that word kacha. That isn't just like an expression. It means something. He's saying keser kol HaKsarim. It comes from a place of ayin. Can't explain it. It comes from a place of such a deep will. It's not rational. It's beyond what I can explain. Kacha. All of this is true. But Chazal do tell us something about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's desire. They say, the Medrash Tanchuma. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had a desire, strange thing. Again, we can't explain it, can't understand it, but this is what it is, kacha. The infinite, the absolute, thank you so much, the absolute had a desire, whatever this means, lias le'dira b'tachtoinen, to dwell in the lower realms, in the realms of physicality. This is Hashem's title. This is what He wants. It's Hashem's title. It's Avaloi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is dir b'tachtonim, here, here, here. To dwell here. Now, the beginning of the creation process is embodied in the midah of chesed. Because oilam chesed yibana, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, it emerges, it flows forth from chesed. Chesed is the beginning of the process. Without getting into the depth of it now, it's not relevant for this exact point. The tzaddikim teach that the days of the week align with the different steps that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took in the process of creating the world. And so as you move from Sunday through the week, is this better? Yeah, that's better? Okay, Baruch Hashem, thank you very much. I can't really hear it, so. Creation unfolds, right? And it's pashut this way because creation was created in 7 days. And so Sunday is the beginning of creation. And it unfolds Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday to Friday. And that means that Shabbos is the end of creation, right? Shabbos is Shabbos b'menucha, the completed creation. This is a created world. Shabbos, everything is created, we rest. Now Chazal tell us, we sing this in L'chadoidi, a little bit of a different terminology that we use, soif maseh b'machshava techila. The very last action, the very end of a process reflects the very earliest point of departure, the beginning. For example, if a person wants to build a house, what's the first thing that he does? He envisions the house. He draws up a blueprint. He thinks about it like he has a vision. In a certain sense, even though it's furthest in the sense of time, because it takes super long to get all the way to the point where the house is built, so it's the furthest point in a certain way, but in a certain sense, the very last nail that he knocks in, that the house is built, is in a way closer to the beginning than all the steps in between, because the very end is only the actualization of what existed already on the level of machshava in the beginning. Soif maseh b'machshava techila, in the lashon of Chazal, soif ha'na'utz b'tchilasa. The end is always bound up with the beginning in a very, very deep way. That means, the Sfarim darshan this, that the words Le'enei Kol Yisrael, which are the words with which the Torah ends, are closer to the words Bereshis Bar Elikim than all the words in between. And there are very deep connections between Le'enei Kol Yisrael and everything that Chazal say about that. Shviras Halucha is very deep. And the word Bereshis Bar Elikim is very close because it's one. So now we could understand that if Shabbos collectively is the goal, is the end, that means that Shabbos manifests the ratzon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had, that is avalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyas le'dir b'tachtonim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on whatever level, whatever this means, desire to be here. We're going to talk about that. What is that, to be here? And what role do we play in that? So the further you go into Shabbos, meaning the more that Shabbos carries on, and the more you move toward the end of this end, Shabbos, you're going further back in the beginning, right? Because Shabbos itself is the soif maseh that reflects the machshava tchila, which is exactly and precisely why we say that in the Chadoidi, because that's what Shabbos is. Me'ein olam haba, it's like a little bit of a taste of the world to come, the great Shabbos to come, liyom shekulei Shabbos. The further you go into Shabbos, it's reflecting the deeper levels of Hashem's ratzon. And that's exactly why the Sfarim teach us that Shalosh Shudas, which is the last point of Shabbos, is not just called Rava, that's the whole Shabbos, is reflecting the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's actually called Rava de Ravin. Keser Kol Haksar. Kacha. It's the place of Kacha. This is Shalosh Shudas. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shakol niyeh b'dvarim. What does this mean? Dir b'tachtonim. What is this desire that Hashem has that we somehow fulfill? What is it? The answer, of course, is what Shabbos is to live a life of Emunah. Is to live a life where we are revealing the way in which Hashem dwells in this place. It's not a matter of us necessarily causing Hashem to dwell in this place. The earth is already filled with His glory. But the work is not done until those beings that are in possession of an illusory separate consciousness are awake to the fact that Emunah doesn't just mean I believe in some concept, like I believe there's one God who created the world theoretically. Makes sense, logical. Emunah means that we're able to develop a living awareness of this all the time. It's Tzaddik the Emunah Yichyeh. Habakkuk boils the whole Yiddishkeit down to one principle. It's Tzaddik the Emunah Yichyeh. And it's not just one principle. The principle is a principle of oneness. Habakkuk v'hamidan al achas. He could have stopped there, because that word achas is already encapsulative of what follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world of multiplicity, and He put us in it to have so many different experiences and fragmented different parts of our identity and different phases of life and stages and challenges and things that we go through. It's not easy. For what purpose? Al-achas. To be awake to the fact that within all of that separateness, it's just an experience of the echad, yachad, and yuchad, which is the tzaddik be'emunah yichyeh. It's to live in such a way. It's to find the unity of life. It's to find Hashem. This is what Emunah means, to live with it, to live with it. Tzaddik be'emunah yichyeh. What it means to be davok. It means more than like a card-carrying Orthodox Jew who has Emunah. We say that you give more animam. Dveikus means that I'm davok, this is my identity. And anywhere that I look, Ribbon Shalom, I'm looking at you. And whatever I encounter, Ribbon Shalom, I'm encountering you. Emunah in such a way, this is called chayim kul chalayim. This is called life. It's tzaddik be'emunah yichyeh. Now, if we are to live in this way, it's important to develop the kind of awareness that allows us to stop constantly pursuing a future experience or a future reality. And what I mean by that is, it's impossible. And I speak to you, but I'm speaking to me. We're speaking together. It's not a matter of like, I'm not holding on any of these madrigas. I'm just exploring them with you. It's an avodah. It's our whole life's work, this. It's impossible for a person to be davok be'emes and at the same time feel that his or her circumstances in the given moment are b'diavad. Those two things are incompatible. It's impossible for a person to be in a specific situation. It could be the worst matzav in the world, and I don't just mean physically. I mean spiritually too. And to want to get out of it, we're going to speak about that. There's place for that too. I'm going to get into. And at the same time, be living with dveikus. With va'atem adveikim Hashem leikeichem, b'chabakuk ve'emidan al achas. Because essentially what we're saying when we have this kind of mindset and perspective and approach to what we're going through is that Hashem is there, but Hashem is not here. And if only I can get over whatever I'm dealing with right now in this moment, then I'll encounter Hashem. We're learning this week's parsha, right? The Rav Shitzer had a very good sense of humor. The Rav Shitzer was like the comedian of all the Rebbes. Very famous jokes and sayings that the Rav Shitzer said. So one time, the Rav Shitzer sat with his Hasidim, was Parshas Yisrael, and he said that the Gemara tells us that before we give a shir, the Amirai, the Tanaim would begin with a joke, with a bedicha, with a joke. So he says, all of us are aware of the Maimar Chazal that tell us that before Am Yisrael said Nasa v'nishma, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He took the mountain and he held it over our heads. And he said, Im tekabel ha-Torah muta. If you'll receive the Torah, excellent. V'im lav, and if not, shamtei kfuraschem. You can be buried here. It's shocking. Like, it's a wild Maimar Chazal. To hold a mountain over the whole entire Am Yisrael, like, that's it. Boom, done, wipe them out. Kloya. Shocking. Heavy, very heavy. And so the Rav Shitzer told us Hasidim, he said, ostensibly, Matan Torah is like the biggest shir in the world that was ever given. From beginning of time to the end of time. See, he said, presumably, such a shir needed the biggest joke that there was. So he says, this is Hashem's joke. This is b'dicha daite. If you'll take the Torah, good. It's a joke. You're gonna wipe out Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael were laughing. He says this was Hashem's joke. Okay. But what we mean to say from this Maimar Chazal is sham tehei kfuraschem. If we live a life constantly of sham, of always trying to look to the next stage in life and to the next, and when I'm married, and when I have kids, and then when I get this job and this matzah, when I get over this health issue, not to say that people don't go through challenges, and it's difficult. Nobody's Adam Amal Yulad can be debilitatingly difficult. But to live a life of always sham, tehei kfuraschem. This is not va'at matvegem Hashem lekechem chayim kol chayim. This is a life of kfuraschem. The secret of Emunah means to say, right here, right now. Like mamish right here, right now. On the most mundane, regular, and non-spectacular day, when I'm in the most regular, mundane, non-spectacular mood. Moment to moment, this, now. Was worth it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring the whole world into existence and to bring only one person into it and to give that one person only this one moment, and that's me, and that's now. Because each of us need to say, B'shvili nivra olam. And Chazal say that you don't have any other day other than today. Hayoim, b'nekoyle tishma'u. If we're going to be able to hear the way that Hashem is communicating to us, here and now. Hayoim, that's it. And this is what Shabbos is. Shabbos is a day of being with what is now. Chazal tell us that when Shabbos comes in, a person needs to look at it as if ki'ilu kol melachtecha asuya. As if there's nothing left to do. Gabe Rottenberg says, right? There's nothing left to do. There's nothing left to do. Ki'ilu kol melachtecha asuya, meaning to say, in a very deep way, and the Maranayim does say this, even beruchnius, with all of our striving, and that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be davening to get into better matzavim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us in this world because He wants us to call out to Him, and He knows that there's a lichatchila, and all of us need things. We want things. We need things. We're here to try to upgrade our lives through tefillah and through ishtadlus. Nobody's arguing that. That's called the 6 days of the week. That's fine. But within that, beyond that, the nekuda pnimis of that means to say that while there are waves on the surface of the ocean, there have to be times where we're able to go down beyond into the depth where everything is still and silent, and I'm able to say Rebbeinu Shalom at the same time that I'm asking you to help me with my matziv, and I can't, and Shema Kerleinu, and screaming out to Avinu Malkeinu. At the same time, that's true. There's also a place where I'm able to stop and say, I don't have yesterday, and I don't have tomorrow, and I have now. And Rebbeinu Shalom, you are trying to communicate to me through this, here, now. Ki'ilu kol melachtecha asuya. There's nothing left to work on. There's nothing left to improve. It just is. And this is Shabbos. This is Emunah. This is what it means. This is how we're mamlech Hashem. And we all think that we're just tiny little human beings walking around the world, and if we take a little bit of a plane and it starts taking off, and you look down and you can't even see individual people, you just see little cars, and you think to yourself, it's not unlike an anthill, right? That's what you think. We're so puny, it's tiny. It's a joke. Everything is on a relative scale. So what we consider to be super important at this place, each of us, I don't know, from 5 feet tall to 6 feet tall, whatever, a little bit less, a little bit more, we think it's very important. Ants, the way that they see life, is the same thing. What is it worth, is what we think. We have no conception of how powerful we are. We have no conception of it. Again, I want to make it clear, on our worst day, on our most insignificant day, waiting in line at the supermarket that we think we're just there because we're waiting online because we need to be somewhere else. You there, with the koyach of your perception, with the koyach of your eyes, with your koyach of being able to maintain a high level of consciousness, to be aware that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. There's nothing greater in the world. This is fulfilling the purpose for which HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought the world into existence. The Pasuk says in Tehillim, L'chu chazu mif'alis Hashem, asher sam shamois ba'aretz. Which on a literal level means that David Melech is saying, L'chu chazu, go and see. Mif'alis Hashem, the wonders of Hashem, asher sam shamois ba'aretz, which literally again translates, he has placed devastation on the earth. Like Chazal tell us, anytime just now to Eretz Yisrael, there's an earthquake, different things happen in different places. It's for Am Yisrael, it's meant to wake us up. There's thunder, it's meant la'avshat hakmimi yeshavaliboy, to shake us awake. So go and see the devastation, terrible things that happen in the world. Kadosh Baruch Hu is sending you a message. That's what it means on a simple level. But the Tzaddik Rabbi Nachman of Breslov teaches in the Kutam Rantinyana Tar Lamites, he says, Shamois is Rosh Tevis, Tachlis Maisei Shamayim Va'aretz. Which is terminology, of course, that we use to refer to Shabbos. Because Shabbos is the Soif Maseh that reflects the Mashal Tchila, which is the Tachlis, which is the purpose for which Hashem created the world, which is Emunah, which is B'chabakak V'amidin Alachas. Shabbos is Tachlis Maisei Shamayim Va'aretz, which means the ultimate purpose of heaven and earth. And this is the way the Rebbe reads the Pasuk. L'chu chazu mefa'alas Hashem. Come and see the wonders of Hashem. Asher sam shamois, that he placed the Tachlis Maisei Shamayim V'aretz, the ultimate purpose of living, Ba'aretz, in the lowest, most mundane experience of material physicality. Ba'aretz, Shamois, Tachlis Maisei Shamayim V'aretz. Where did he put it? Where can we get at it? Where can we access it? Where can we feel plugged in, attuned? Not some, Yom Kippur or musical slichas, which we actually did here. Or like some very high moment, or some trip to a cave of a tzaddik, or the Eretz Yisrael. All these are wonderful things. I'm known to do some of these things sometimes. So many of us are. Ba'aretz, where you are now. Kilu kol malach chasuya, with a mindset of Shabbos, here and now. By virtue of us being aware of it. And in this sense, there's no person that's better positioned to fulfill the ultimate purpose of heaven and earth than anyone else. Because in this sense, it's not dependent on any kind of circumstance. There is no one way of accessing this level of consciousness, that if a person is zoich and privileged to sit in the Gan Eden of being supported for 1,000 years, is sitting in Koilo forever and ever, so okay, what can you do? He's making it because he's sitting and learning all day. Or if somebody, let's say, is, lucky to be a stay-at-home mom, if this is something that, the woman aspire to, or think that would be a pleasant thing to have time to be able to daven a proper shachars and a proper mincha, maybe listen to shir, but you can't because you have 1 million kids and we're running all over the place and we're cleaning up and we're making dinners. It's just impossible. So then my circumstances is maybe less. What can I do? It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. There's no one else in the world but you. In this sense. And it means that however life is unfolding for you, However non-spiritual you feel your life circumstances might appear on the surface. That's not what it's about. Tachlis ma'aseh shemaim va'aretz, ba'aretz. If you're at the office, it's ba'aretz. Tachlis ma'aseh shemaim va'aretz. You can develop a consciousness of Torah. Like the Nefesh HaChaim says, you have to be learning all the time. What does learning mean? Learning means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending you messages. It means you're awake to Hora'ah, which is what the Torah is. Not a matter of sitting in front, let's say, of a Gemara, Mishnah Berurah, or Chassidus, Kabbalah. It's not. To pick up on the fact that every moment of life is a communication. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not just speaking the world into existence in the beginning of creation, that there are 6 days of the week and there are 10 Mamarim Shabehem Nivra Shamayim Va'aretz, but that, like the Baal Tanya teaches us in Yichyeh Emunah, Parak Aleph and Beis, and like all that Tzaddik can teach, every moment of life is lived within the echo of Hashem speaking to you now. Levels the playing field. All of us have access. Ki'ilu kol malachta asuya, Shabbos, b'chabakuk ve'emidan al achas, to find the echad yachad yuchad, and all of it in the good times and the not such good times. V'atem adveikim Hashem lekeichem chayim, kulchem hayom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu, Vayetze yosei achutza v'yemar abeit hashamayim. This is a very important point because it's the first thing that we really hear about you and me. It's like the earliest thing that's said in the Torah about us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes Avram Avinu outside. Achutza, Chazal say, whatever this means, physically, metaphorically, Hashem lifted him like above the constellations. Achutza. Vayomer abeit nashamayim, he says, look up at the sky, usvar hakoychalim, and count the stars. Im tuchal lisparisam, if you can count them. Vayomer koyezarach. Says this is what your children will be, like the stars of the heavens. Now, on a certain very basic level, it means that we're going to be numerous, which we are, Baruch Hashem. Like the stars in the night sky. That's what it means on a simple level. But if you think about this pasuk, it's a strange thing. It's like, maybe there's another joke of Hashem, I don't know. Like, it's a strange thing. Go outside and count the stars. Im tuchal lisparisam. If you can, so can he or can't he? And if he can't, so what are you bothering him for? Just tell him. Like, your children will be innumerable, like the stars. What's this exercise? Go out. He tells him, usvara koichavim, count the stars. Im tuchal lisparisam. What's this all about? So I ask you a question. Can you count all the stars? Let me frame it a little bit differently. Is there a definitive number of stars? No. You don't think there's a definitive number of stars? There are infinite stars? Yeah. How could that be? What do you think? What does anybody else think? Do you think there's an infinite number of stars? What's the only thing that we know that's infinite? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So I'm sure there are a lot of them. Maybe even beyond our conception of numbers, could be. But on a theoretical, conceptual level, there are a number of stars. There are, because the Olam Asiyah is just the created world. And then we go into the higher world, Yitzirah, Bria. There is, like, it's a world of limitation. There are a lot of them, right? But theoretically, you could count them. So now I ask you another question. Why can't you count them? If they are countable, meaning to say that there are a given number of them, so then why can't we count them? What's that? Why can't you count them? Who says that? Somebody? Because you can't. Because you can't see them, right? Theoretically, if a person mapped out some kind of technology, which I'm sure we could develop today with some kind of glasses to look up at the sky and, if we were able to see all the stars, it might take you a very long time with AI, technology today, like this. I don't know, but you could probably count them. But we simply can't because we can't see them. Now here's my final question of this particular point. Is the reason that you can't see them because they're not shining? Well, we don't see them shining, right? But that's not the reason that we don't see them. They're just too far away. They're just too far away. But they are shining and they are countable. B'derech efsher, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes Avram Avinu chutza, aretz, into the later generations. You read this Hadairos, we don't really know what we're doing. We're wandering around. It's very, very challenging, particularly in the winter over here. I've discovered it's really hard. It's hard on your emotional health. It's very hard. It's a dark place to be. It's a wonderful by Manchester. It's a wonderful place to be, like I pointed out last time. But physically, it's dark. It's not easy. It's just not easy. Hachutza. Vayomer, he tells Avram Avinu, Habeit no shamayim. Look up at the sky. Usfar koichavim. And count the stars. He says, Im tucha lisparisam. Now, basically, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was subliminally telling Avram Avinu all this whole Megillah that we went through, with all the questions, right? They are countable. You can't count them, not because they're not shining, because they're too far away. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu, Koyi yezarecha. In the end of time, somebody might look at certain Yidden and they look at their life circumstance and they say, Gevald, like you just, this guy, this girl, it's not shining. Not shining. Can't shine. We just don't see it. We don't see a connection. We don't see even the opportunity of connection when we assess that person's life, or lifestyle, or circumstance. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu, I want you to know that it's not because they're not shining. It's because they're a little bit far away. And it's because you're a little bit far away from your concept of what it means to have the opportunity of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The realization that there's no one circumstance that's better than another. It's just life as it is. And that each and every one of us is no inyan of further, closer, life as life. And each of us have our journey and our traumas and our circumstances and our dreams for the future and our challenges. Each person is an olam maleh. So we say every morning in Shacharis about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moine mispor lakeichavim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts the stars. Lechulam shemois yikhyeh. He calls them all by name. Shemois, again, Rosh Hashanah, Tachlis, Maaseh, Shamayim va'aretz. HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at every single Yid and he says, there's no inyan of this further, closer. More able to connect, less able to connect. Life as life, in the moment, kilu kol malachtach asuya, on the level of Shabbos, that right now, I know it sounds shocking to you, and it's shocking to me too. It's a hard thing to wrap our mind around. Right now, in this moment, this is it. This is it for this alone. Certainly for this alone, for sure. Tachlis Maaseh Shamayim va'aretz. Hashem is Emunah mispor lakeichavim. He sees the way that every person is shining. He sees the way that every person can shine. He sees the way that every single person was sent to this world dafka to shine, dafka in the way that he or she needs to shine, in a way that's unique to their own circumstance and their own position. The Shabbos candles are lit Friday night by the mothers of Am Yisrael, who are given this special privilege. It's the highest point of Shabbos, in a certain way. On a simple level, Chazal say, because Mishum Shalom Bayis. On the most basic level, Mishum Shalom Bayis. Which means, say Chazal, because if we didn't have light in the house today, it's not so shaykh because we have lights. But if we didn't have lights in the house, and it was dark, say Chazal, everybody would be bumping into each other. And when you're carrying around the Rebbe Rashab's, soup with election, and everybody's bumping into each other and tripping over things, doesn't lead to Shalom Bayis. It could lead to the opposite. So we light candles in the home, that there should be light for Shalom Bayis, that we can see each other. That's what it means on a simple level. But based on everything that we're saying now, B'siyata D'Shmaya, with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has such a nachas from this, unbelievable. Yidden, like just sitting, being aware of him, unbelievable thing. Shabbos being this concept of moine mispal ha'kechavim l'chulam shemis yikro, each and every person in their place as they are. Emunah, Rabba the Rabbin, Soif Masa b'machshavat Chila, Dveikus, all of this. Shabbos enables us to have true shalom, not just with each other, but within ourselves. To finally be at peace. Shalom bayis, the person himself is called a bayis. Ner ishu beisa is a reference to his wife. People are called bayis. Each of us is a bayis. B'levavi mishkan even, each of us is a beis hamikdash. Each of us is a bayis. Shalom bayis, to have shalom within ourselves. Because on Shabbos, we don't bump into each other. Which means to say that I recognize you have a place and I have a place. And there's no tishtush, there's no blurring of those lines. There's no chas v'shalom place where I feel that I can mow you over because look at you and look at me. On Shabbos, everyone has a place. Shalom bayis. Nobody walks into the tchum of anybody else. Every single person is uniquely positioned to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from within their own circumstances as they are right now. That's called shalom bayis. That's peace within ourselves and as we relate to each other. Ko yeh zarach. Ko yeh zarach. Reb Tzadok HaKohen writes, one of the most famous teachings from Reb Tzadok in Sikas HaTzadik. He says the same way that a person needs to believe in Hashem, kach achar kach tzarech ha'adam laha'amin ba'atzmo. Very famous, right? A person needs to believe in himself. But what does that mean to believe in yourself? What does that mean? Colloquially, we use it like, if a person wants to accomplish something, we say, just believe in yourself, you could do it, But Reb Tzadok elaborates. And he says what it means to believe in ourselves is to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an asek imai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has an asek with you. A connection with you. He wants something from you as you are. And this is not an image of deserving or undeserving. It just is. If you're here, that's it. Like the Ma'arinaim says, you are connected to Hashem. Well, how do you know that? Because you're living. Hashem has an asek with you right now. There's an avodah for you. Not tomorrow and not next Sukkot and not Yom Kippur. Right now, as you are. Whatever we're going through. This, here, now. Sometimes it's clearer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here and wants that relationship. Sometimes it's more challenging. But about this, the Pasuk tells us in Shir Hashir that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashkiach min hachalonos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching us, looking out the window. And what's the next few words in the Pasuk? Meitzitz min hacharakim. He's looking through the cracks. And the Bnei Yissaschar explained this with the following mashal. He says that sometimes there's a Jewish mother who's in the home, and her son is so sweet and delicious, and he wants to go and play with some friends. So he asks his mommy, can I go down to the yard? The garden, I think they call it here. Can I go down and play ball with the neighbors? And the mother says, for sure, absolutely, go, have a great time. And he goes downstairs and he's, kicking a ball around. They're playing soccer, what some people call football, I don't know. It's really called soccer though. And they're kicking a ball around. And every few minutes, this boy Yanko looks up at the window of his apartment and he sees his mother is blowing him a kiss. Right? He's too embarrassed to blow a kiss back. But he sees that his mommy is there and she's watching him. She adores him. And she's watching him. And every few minutes he looks up. Mommy's in the window. However, there are other days where Yankala, and all of our Yankalas, we understand, everybody should bring children into the world, Be'ez Hashem. And children could be challenging sometimes, right? Just learning that I have a 4-year-old. Sometimes children can be challenging. And sometimes there's a different kind of matziv where Yaakov still goes to play outside, but it's not because he asked his mommy so sweetly. It's because the mother says, listen, I'm trying to prepare for Shabbos. I'm busy with a million things. Honestly, just go downstairs and play. So she needs a little bit of Yeshiva Das. She's upset. And he puts on his coat in a huff, and he storms out, and he slams the door, and he goes down, and he's playing. And if you can summon up the courage, he glances up at that window again. But this time the shade is down because his mother's she was upset, she was angry, she was frustrated. But says the Bnei Yissaschar, if he looks closely enough, he sees that a Jewish mother is peeking through the blinds. He sees that Mommy is there too. Mommy is there then too. Says the Bnei Yissaschar, there are times in our lives where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashgiach menach. And you look up and it's clear to you HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there and he's blowing you a kiss. He says it's very important for us to know Chazal darshan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made it menacharak. There's never a moment in your life where you look up at whatever proverbial window and the shade and the blinds are down, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not there too, because he can't stop looking at you. He can't take his eyes off you. He adores you. And he gives you the challenges that he gives you because he needs for you to connect with him dafka through them, not to escape them. Sham teik furascha. That's going to be the end. Here and now. Well, this will come to the end. How do we come to this perspective? How do we develop this kind of Emunah? It's a very different kind of Emunah than the way that many even refer to Emunah. It's a very different thing. Hey, he's a mammon, yeah. He's a mammon. What does it mean he's a mammon? Again, because he has a foggy idea that there's maybe a God somewhere. This is very different. This is mamish. It's to use a gashmistic mashal. I hope that it doesn't offend anybody. You can have a phone, right? Like some of these phones that you see over here, that have different apps, right? Different apps on the phone. You don't have to admit to it, but there are different apps, right, on the phone. And on the application, if you're a kid's school, you can still write. There's no phones, you know. But there are different apps, and so a lot of chevra relate to this concept of Emunah as, okay, here's my life, here are a bunch of different apps, and it's good to have Orthodox Judaism as one of the apps on the phones. There are different areas of my life, and sometimes I click on this app, and sometimes I click on that app, and if I'm lucky enough to go to shul for Shachas ben Chamar, so I'm clicking on that app 3 times. Sometimes, by the way, actually, right? If we have a Siddur app, so sometimes quite literally. But we have this part of our life that's called Emunah. The way that the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh wanted to give over Yiddishkeit, the way that the Svarim of Pnimius are asking us to engage in Yiddishkeit like our life depends on it, because our life does depend on it, because it's the oxygen that we need to breathe in this last generation before the coming of Mashiach. Yiddishkeit is not an app. Yiddishkeit is the operating system within which all of the other apps are downloaded, through which all of the other apps function. So sure, we have an app that's called making dinner, right? And sure, we have an app that's called 9 to 5. And sure, we have an app that's called taking the kid to the dentist. And these are different apps. But the framework within which they operate is called Tzaddik be'emunah Yichyeh. It's a whole different life. It's a whole different Emunah. Halavai that I should be zeichet. Halavai that we should be zeichet to this. But at least we have to know what the goal is, know where we're going. Otherwise, mamash will never get there. So how do we get there? How do we develop these kinds of perspectives? Looking back at that pasuk, L'chu chazu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, L'chu chazu, go and see. Mef'alos Hashem asher asa shamis ba'aretz. That's not the words.
Asher? Some, thank you. Asher some shamis ba'aretz, which we said is tachlis ma'aseh shmai ba'aretz. The tzaddikim teach that the whole secret to developing this kind of perspective is the word lichu. With this we're coming to the end. For this time. Hopefully there'll be many other times we get to learn together. Such a privilege, like unbelievable privilege for me. What a privilege. Thank you. They say the whole thing is the word lichu. Lichu means to go, like go and see. But the tzaddikim teach that it all depends on how we walk. Listen to this, how we walk. Because the Gemara tells us in a number of places, the Gemara in Tainus and Shabbos, the Gemara tells us that if a person takes big steps, strange thing Chazal say, 1/500th of his eyesight is taken away. It's a strange Chazal. Psias Gasas, person takes very large steps, somehow this affects the eyesight. When does it come back? What's the tikkun? Chazal say that the eyesight that a person loses when they take big steps comes back b'kedusha de shimsha, which is when we're making kiddush Friday night. We're zeicha to look into the kais, very, very deep Indian, big Indian, the eyes and the kais, to look into the kais like we're supposed to. A little bit, our eyesight comes back. I was thinking very deeply about this. What does this mean? What does it really mean? Because everybody could say the Chazal, okay, we know what the Gemara says. Fine, but what's the Gemara saying, right? What's it really saying? Pasuk in this week's parsha, Shemoya Tishma. If you will surely hear, right? So the tzaddikim teach, Shemoya Tishma, there has to be two levels of hearing anytime we learn a Gemara. On the one level, you learn it because Shemoya, you see what it says. But then after you learn it, now it's time to stop, and now Tishma. Now really hear what it says, right? Okay, what is it saying to me, right? I know what it means, but what is its meaning? So maybe, B'derech Hashem, I want to suggest like this. If a person rushes through life, if a person is always taking big steps, sham, always trying to get somewhere else, I'm going to end up missing things. My eyesight, which means on a very deep level, the way that I look at the world, the way that I appreciate or not appreciate my circumstances, that's going to be affected if I'm always taking big steps, which means that I'm rushing all the time to get somewhere else and to do something else and to want something else, because that's where Hashem is, right? Sham. So, Chaver, when does it come back? What's the tikkun for this kind of living? It can only be Shabbos. Because based on everything that we're saying, Shabbos represents this nekuda of ki'ilu kol malachtecha asuya. It's the exact opposite consciousness. It's the consciousness of what's called isness, right? It just is, like the very being of the way that things are right now is a gilui eloki. We call it nature. Is mamish his galus of elokus right now, and we're always trying to find a way of connecting to Hashem. We're swimming in Him. Where you are right now, hamakom sha'ata oimer aleha. Admas Kodesh. The tzaddikim say, wherever that place is, where you are in life, and whatever line that you're queuing, in the bank or something. So I learned something a couple of months I'm here. You're queuing, right? Wherever you are. My family could hardly understand me anymore. I speak to my siblings like, what? Queuing? Right? So, wherever you are, Admas Kodesh. But it's all a question of what? Of perception. On Shabbos we sing, Poisin boy psia ketana. Shabbos is all about taking very small steps. Again, we have what to fix. Not getting into the whole thing now because we don't have time. We're going to sing a little bit more and let everybody go. There's an Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. It's true. There's good and bad. There's a bechina of, right now my matzav is Ra, and I would like it to be Tov. That's true. That is true. It exists. It's there. It's important. And we have to be awake to that reality also. It's not just sitting and saying, oh, okay, whatever, and being a pushover, and whatever life throws my way, it's just, okay, everything's fine. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us tefillah, even though we believe that Kol Ma'adav Rachon L'Tava, but that doesn't stop us from davening Rufa'enu, right? There is a Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. That is true. But there's also an Eitz HaChaim. And very deeply, Chazal say that if Adam and Chava would have eaten first from the Eitz HaChaim, it would have been mutter for them to eat from the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra. It's the deepest thing there is. They got the order all wrong. Their primary focus was on good or not good. Shams, they're running. Chazal say, if they would have first ate from the Eitz HaChaim, Bakuk ve'amid al achas v'tzadik be'emunah say Yichyeh. Ava'atem hadveikim Hashem lekechem chayim kulchem hayom. Then they could healthily, in a positive way, that doesn't lead to pizar nefesh, they could have then engaged with the realities of Tov and Ra, but from a healthy place. From a healthy place, from a grounded place. Chassam Sofer says that if they would have waited until Shabbos, it would have become mutter for them to eat. Which is l'chayr the same nekuda, now that we understand it. Shabbos is the Eitz HaChaim. Toyamel Chaim Zach. Poisim b'psiya katano. Go slow on Shabbos. Go slow. Kol malachtacha suya. It's not working out, and there are fights by the Shabbos table, and nobody's listening to your Dvar Torah, let's say. Right, and it's not how you would really want it, and you want to have kavanah by Yazamar b'shvachim, and everybody's nagging you that people are hungry already. Whatever the nekuda is, I want to let you know all of that is a lichatchila shel. The soundtrack of Jewish life is crying children. That's the soundtrack. Like that's how Hashem wants it. I hate to even bring this in, but you should know that right after the war. Right after the war, I want to let you know this. Tragic is beyond words. Shtoik, kach ala b'machshava. After the war, shuls were very, very quiet during Kriyas HaTorah. They're very quiet. I'm even Yavan, right? I don't have to say it with our mouths. What a blessing that we have children, right? Running around shuls. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah says that they're going to, whatever, leave them at home with our youth groups. What a privilege. So you think no, because if they would just go downstairs like Yankel, if they would just leave and shush, so then Gewalt, I'd be able to be on my madregas. And we don't realize that's mamish antithetical to Shabbos. That's the hepich of what Shabbos is. To get frustrated because they're not letting me say the Dvar Torah that I absolutely need to say. Why do you absolutely need to say Dvar Torah? Like, let it go. Let it go. Who's this for? It's for you or it's for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It's for me or it's for him? And if it's for him and this is the way that he wants it now, Shabbos means poisim b'psiya kedan, not rushing anywhere. Poi eishev, ki ivisiya. Nis'av aloy l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu lios like dir b'tachtoinu poi eishev. Eishev is Rosh Tevis, Emunah, Simcha, B'tachon. That's the whole thing. Poi eishev, dir b'tachtoinu. Where we are now. So I want to end just by blessing you with this and me. And primarily, again, I just want to make it clear, anytime that I say anything, I'm really, and I mamash mean this, I'm speaking to myself. Everybody else could overhear. I need it the most. I'm sure. Because I know that a person can talk about these things all the time, because I do, that's my job. It's not a job, but that's what I do. And it's still so challenging. Like you could literally give 5 shiurim on this a day and still get frustrated because you're in traffic. Like it happens. Vaharaya, it happened to me today because I was supposed to speak at Jewish High. And I had 2 sessions that I spent a lot of time preparing for and printing out monkey pictures, right, for it. And not getting into that now. And I mamish had a whole thing planned. And because of whatever practical manias that there were along the way, I missed not one of them, but both of them. And I was mamish broken about it. And Halavai, I should be able to say that I reacted, Chaim Kuchem, Shabbos-themed Halavai, let's be honest. right? We don't have anything else but honesty today, right? We have to be open. So I'm being honest with you. I need to work on this. I'm giving myself a bracha, giving you a bracha. We should be Yichyeh to live Shabbosdi'ke lives. Shabbos is the Makar HaBracha. This is the Makar HaBracha. If we can live with this kind of perspective and discover it in others, in the struggling child, and in the student that just won't sit and listen, and realize that wherever anybody is, that doesn't mean there's not a way to go and to daven and to try to improve. Wherever they are right now, there's a bechina, there's an aspect in which they are exactly where they need to be now. Makar HaBracha, to live a life like this. Shalom. Amish Shalom. So I bless you with it. I give myself a bracha and you a bracha. We should be Yichyeh to live lives of Emunah. Yerushalayim ir chavarachim u'tashav. As you come back to the bayis, where mamish be shalom bayis, all of Am Yisrael. Oyim dem tzfufim, where it seems to be, everybody's mishtachim and ravachim. There's space for everyone. Everyone has a place. Everyone has a place. Hashem is telling a marvelous story of which each and every one of us are sub-narratives. The story is already told. It's being lived in real time through me and you. She was able to live with this awareness and be able to brachas in our lives, to l'chatchila, whatever our dream is of l'chatchila. Anybody that needs yeshuas and parnasa and any kind of shidduchim, zavugim and children, whatever anybody needs refuas, they should have that. But along the way, to live moment to moment with the awareness that right now, Kadosh Baruch Hu is peeking through the window blinds. He's looking at me as an asik with me. What a privilege. What a privilege. L'chaim, l'chaim.